Hello and welcome back to TwoSun Tuesday, and today I have a bit of a budget model here. This one does exist in a titanium frame lock. I don't own it. It's been out of production for a very, very long time. This is a TS102. And this is at least a little interesting to me here in the fact that it is a NightMorning design, as we can see here. However, this to me looks amazingly like a lot of Wong designs. There's a lot of design language and stuff like that I kind of more associate with him than I do with NightMorning. That's just kind of an interesting aside, I suppose. Now this guy here, yes, it is definitely a budget sort of affair. And we can see that like the liners and backspacer are actually a little bit larger than the Micarta scales that we have going around here. This is an older model. This is basically using their Micarta, so kind of a burlap-ish kind of thing. But they do have a lot of texturing going on here. It is very, very small, so it's pretty difficult to be able to see, especially on the flats there. But it does have a little bit of texture to it. It's not just a perfectly polished turd, if you will, as it's, well, unfortunately kind of what their natural brown micarta kind of looks like. And this guy is a little bit smaller than I suppose a lot of other Wong designs would be. But it's not all that bad of a design there. We have this I'm not quite sure exactly what we want to call that. It is technically ever so slightly a drop point, but it does have that triangular type of blade. There's got to be a particular name for that style. Heck if I actually know what it is, though. So we'll just go ahead and call it a triangularly looking drop point there. We do have a bit of a finger choil going on here. This isn't a Wong design, so it's not quite large enough for me, but it will probably suit most people if they do want to choke up. And that will actually get you a full 4-finger grip, because at least for me, grabbing back here, this is definitely a 3-finger knife here. That probably has to do with the fact that we got a little over a 3-inch blade here. Oh, looks like I didn't fully get all of the measurements on here. So I will grab my calipers. There we are. They're not the best in the world, but they're the ones that I got, so they're the best ones that I have. Now before I had this measured right around 3.07 inches. Let's see if that's still true. Close enough, maybe 3.08. That'll be 78.1 millimeters or so. So there we go with the blade on that Deuterino. It is quite thick in the blade stock department, 3.9 millimeters there. That's fairly standard kind of affairs for TwoSun, maybe even a little bit thicker than kind of the standard 3.8 that they end up going with. It is a full flat grind though, and it comes down to a decent edge there. Yeah, and it starts to thin out a little bit. So I don't really have too much in the problem of the geometry behind the edge there. It ends up cutting pretty good. Don't really have a huge amount of complaints on that. It is D2, just like the vast majority of their library there. And let's see, how about the weight on this guy? It is just a little over 4 ounces, 4.04 ounces, or 114.5 grams. So it's not super terribly heavy, but it's also not an incredibly large knife. This, because it's a budget model, is using their kind of folded over steel clip. Much better than their stamped black ones that they used on some of them. However, this one, it sticks out quite a bit. It is more than noticeable in the hand when you're especially if you're putting any kind of a downward pressure that's kind of pushing up around here. It's really uncomfortable for me, straight up. I haven't really had the want to carry this guy before, and a lot of that really has to do with that pocket clip. The titanium one obviously has a bespoke titanium clip. I'm sure that one probably affects you less. But as far as this one goes, yeah, not super a giant fan of it. The thickness here on the handle, quite a bit. I had it measured at 0.68 of an inch, but I forgot to measure for forgot to measure for metric. So we're gonna go with 17 point, I don't know, 15. Sure, 17.2, maybe somewhere right around there if I were to round up for that. Make sure that guy stays off. But yeah, there's a lot of strangeness going on here. It doesn't have a call-out pivot color. It was kind of before they started doing that on quite a few models. The let's see. Yeah, where it starts to meet the blade for the lock mechanism starts right around here, so very early, so that's good. By the time that flipper tab does hit your thumb, you are over it. But it does have a little bit of a detent ramp. Maybe not necessary for it, but in this particular case, it's very early on, so it's really not hurting a whole lot by having you be kind of in between by the time you're removing your thumb from the liner area. So it ends up working out all right. G10 backspacer on this guy, not a matching micarta backspacer. Certainly happens in a ton of budget knives with micarta handles because, well, it's much easier to end up machining and stuff like that out of G10, which is kind of also cheaper in a lot of cases. Not always, but in a lot of cases. That just ends up being a little bit more efficient for them, so they end up doing that. This backspacer covers the entirety of the blade, so whether this thing would have a snaggle tooth or not on the titanium frame lock, I can't really say. I'm pretty sure that backspacer doesn't go up all the way, but I don't own the model, so I can't really speak to it. The titanium guy also has like a little kind of a machine work on the front there, a little kind of dimple or something like that. I think it might be on both sides. Not sure if that was just milled out or if they also kind of put in like a ceramic bearing or something like that. I haven't quite been able to tell by the photos, so yeah. Again, I can't really speak to it. I just have the budget guy here, which, yeah, not exactly my favorite, but it's not terrible. I do like that blade shape and stuff like that, but like I've said, I also have a much better implementation of it from a Wong design, which is kind of what this reminds me of, as I had mentioned earlier. So let's see, I got some measurements and all that sort of stuff. And if we do some size comparisons here, it is a little bit on the small side for what a lot of TwoSuns are. There we go. Yep, definitely smaller than the Paramilitary 2. But a PM3. It seems to be around the proportions of a Spyderco PM3. So let's get those compression locks out the way. Pull in a Griptilian here, which is a little bit larger. There's a bug out, which, fairly similar size. This thing is obviously like almost twice as thick as this guy is, but that's all right. I guess both of these Benchmans, if you aren't aware, were kind of modified on the scales. This bug out originally did have G10, but I swapped them out for titanium. And the Griptilian had the standard ABS plastic or whatever they're using, a little bit more modern like. But I got some aftermarket G10 scales. They're fantastic. But alrighty, let's see. One more Benchmade. We got the 940 there. It's a little bit larger. My Civivi Elementum flying out of my hands. There we go. Yeah, the Elementum is just a little bit smaller. It's not a very large knife. That is, that's for true. There we go. There's the Kizer Dozier Folding Hunter. Sure, why not? We got the rat number 1. It's quite a large knife, but there we go. There's all sorts of blade size comparisons for you. And yeah, I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover on it. It's nice and thick, which does make it feel nice. Overall, does have a nice hand-filling grip. However, that pocket clip drives me up the wall. It's just not in a very good spot for my hands and probably a lot of other folks out there, because it is designed to be a 3-finger knife. Usually deep carry pocket clips, unless they're very, very well accounted for, have problems with that. So there we are. The action, it's not bad. It's obviously on bearings like the rest of them. But no matter what, I can't get it past kind of a more violent wiggle closed. So not exactly the best action out of any TwoSun by any stretch of the imagination. But still serviceable. And obviously this guy was built down to a price. God, I think I probably paid somewhere around like $32 for it or whatever when it was done. But yeah, there we go. There's the TS102-Micarta. Yeah, definitely have to keep that in mind with the model number, because there is, like I said, the titanium frame lock that was done before it. Most likely also in D2. I can't exactly speak as to if that's the only variant that existed, but there you go. Oh, it is actually, yeah, inset into the micarta, and with more than one screw, because that's how they actually do their steel clips. Kind of wish that they would do that on a lot more of their titanium clips, because one single screw into there would just absolutely destroy this thing pretty darn quick. But yeah, there we go. I took the pocket clip off. Y'all who've seen quite a few of my other videos know exactly where we're going. We're going to go ahead and take this apart, look on the inside of it. If that's not something you're interested in, well, that's basically the end. So you can go ahead and go back to something a little bit more interesting to you. For the rest of us, though, we're going to plunge a little bit deeper in here. And this one was done a little bit differently. As in most TwoSuns, you would assume that would be a Chicago style screw, but nothing on the other side for it. But yeah, let's go ahead and pop this guy off. I need a little Jimmy Jim to help me along, so here we are. I can grab this guy here. This one's metal. Yeah, in general, you definitely want to use something that's plastic for using these kind of jimmyable spudgers is the name for them. There we go. Actually need to take that middle screw off there. There's the inside of the micarta here. You can see we have kind of coated liners. Not sure why they've done that, but they have done it on a few models. And then here we are with a couple of hidden screws in there. At least everything's still T8, but yeah, this thing is put together a bit differently than a lot of their other models. But yeah, there we go. Oh, okay. Well, that would explain at least a little bit. So that's something that I didn't cover, I suppose, on this one in particular here, is, yep, they are steel liners. But because they've coated them, they have included bearing race. They're not grooved or anything like that. They are a little bit different in that particular way. But yeah, it is a little bit interesting how they ended up kind of throwing these things together here. And we do have D-shaped pivot. This is an older style, so it is on the lock bar side instead of the show side. So you have to make a conscious effort to keep that thing facing the correct way. And we do have a internal lock pen to the blade, so nothing super crazy out of the ordinary going on there. But yeah, just quite a bit different construction overall than you end up seeing from a ton of other TwoSuns out there. I will go ahead and slap a couple of these screws back on here. Sorry for the obstructive wrist cam, but hey, what are you gonna do? I'm working with limited space here. So, alrighty, at that point I can slap top scale back on. Get that pivot screw back all up in that piece. Fold it over, and just so, peace of mind, because I keep my knives nice and sharp. And there we go. And of course the pocket clip, which for most of my TwoSun models, especially those that don't have the models printed on the blade, I have little label makers to help me remember, so I can keep them in line in my draws. But yeah, not too bad to get back together. Just a little bit more involved construction than a lot of their other budget knives. Still an interesting piece. If you do like this blade shape, though, there is one or two other TwoSuns from Wong Design that I would suggest a little bit over this one. As I've said, a few times already in this video, though, I can't actually speak to how well the original titanium frame lock version of this is, because, well, I don't own it. But there we go. There's everything I wanted to cover with the TS102-Micarta variant there. Interesting design, but definitely not my favorite. But hey, that's just my opinion. You might actually think that this knife is the bee's knees in that case. I'm sure even on the secondary market, these things probably aren't all that expensive. So, alrighty. As always, I appreciate y'all for watching, and have yourself a wonderful rest of your day, yo.